Okay, what is the best solution for communicating with a partner or a lover, friend, coworker, boss that is a terrible communicator? And we had a role play a little while ago where we talked about how to do like the non-blaming I statements rather than very blame-filled you statements. It's literally the difference between explaining your experience versus blaming the person for your problems. So I might say, you never put gas in the car when you get done with it, and you always drink the very last drop of milk or orange juice and put the empty carton back in the fridge. And then that would be like a maybe even a true statement. Probably not, because there's rarely a always and rarely a never. But it could be true. It could be like, it's an irritating thing. You see an empty milk carton or an empty orange juice. You go to get some orange juice and it's gone. However, if you describe your experience, you're going to make more headway. You describe it by saying, I really, really love when the car's almost empty and we're sharing it, that whoever's got it down below a quarter tank fills it so that the other one isn't like caught off guard. Um, Another one might say, I really um, feel like I can't replace things or I can't put it on a shopping list if every time someone like you or I or anyone drinks it right down to the last drop and then just puts the empty carton back in. Or it might even be more kind of direct. I would love it if you would tell me when we're out of milk and just throw the carton away. I would love it if you would notice when you've drank almost all of the orange juice to let's put it on a shopping list so that we can replace it instead of just putting it back in the fridge. Would that be okay? So you're describing your experience. You're not like aggressively like charging after someone. You're not losing any kind of empathy that you have for someone. However, you can't control the other person. What if the other person, what if your partner, what if your spouse or lover always uses these blaming statements, always uses? What if they most often use these blaming statements? I want you to think about a way that you can communicate with someone that is just like way behind the curve or gets easily flooded and angered, sometimes even appears irrational. Now, I want to say this just quick disclaimer. If you're in an abusive relationship where violence is happening and you're being threatened like even ever at all, you need to get out of the relationship and for sure take a time out from it and get yourself safe and allow them to get treatment, but literally do not put yourself at risk. What I'm talking about is communication skills gone awry. Some people are just plain angry. Some people don't have the kind of skill set yet to communicate well. But everyone can learn, and everyone needs an opportunity to learn. A person might have other skills, not communication skills, and so you want to like make sure you highlight those other skills and not just condemn for the lack of communication skills. Okay, because a couple of things that we can understand, communication is a learnable skill. And that's what we're talking about here today is how to be best at teaching a learnable skill. So if you want to get through to a person that's a poor communicator, if you want to do much better at relationship with those that aren't doing well at communication, there's some really clear rules that you can follow that will enhance your ability. So rule number one, if you want to call this a rule, this is a really healthy principle, is you must engage, never avoid. Like you can't decide that it's just too difficult or you don't like confrontation, you don't like conflict, so you just avoid, because if you avoid long enough, it's going to bubble out. So you have to jump in. You have to just take a deep breath and say, I need to sit down with you and talk about some things. Once you do that a bunch of times with anyone, it'll become easier and easier for you to. If you always put off, avoid, and then finally step into the conversation, you'll always have that nervousness. If you get used to the fact that if you've pondered it twice, jump into the middle of it. If you've pondered it twice, go ahead and make a bold statement so that the other person knows that you're going to communicate. And then once that habit's established, And once your anxiety knows you're not going to give in, your anxiety will diminish and you'll just have a forward plan for always doing it. So dive right in. Rule number 2. Now, this one is like super important, especially if the person that you're dealing with on a continual basis or even now and again is super defensive. Okay, if the person is super defensive, I want you to practice this in one skill. Listen. You'll be amazed at how much information you will glean from someone if you just listen to them. Okay? I want you to think about listening. I want you to think about listening uninterrupted, attentive. We call it like literally action-based listening. Lean in, not at the right times. You know, when you're catching things, maybe every now and again have them pause and restate what you're hearing so that they know you're understanding them. Really just listen to them until they get everything out. So many people that are hostile are so used to getting cut off and told not to feel the way they feel, told not to like talk the way they talk. And if they don't have a really healthy skill set for communicating, that just creates insecurity, which creates even worse communication. So just listen. That's my challenge to you. If you can teach the people that you help, if you can remember yourself that the listening skill is the number one after stepping in and just doing the conversations. It's the number one skill that you can disarm a hostile person with. I want you to think about how many times you really get listened to. How many times a day? For some of us, it's not very often. In fact, I've got clients that tell me that in the counseling session, that's the only place they really get listened to. And what a shame. We're not a society that's really good at slowing down and really listening. We're generally listening to respond rather than really listening. I've got a couple of friends and some really good friends that are super good listeners. They attend to the conversation. They never try to respond with their own stuff. They respond by mirroring. They really listen. They take things in. They let me know that they've understood me. And it just feels rewarding. That's how this person will feel that you're working with that's not a good communicator. So listen. Number 3, validate. Now, when you're dealing with someone that doesn't communicate really well, it might feel incredibly hard to validate them. It might feel like you're selling out a point. It might feel like you're like losing some ground, but you really won't. Validating simply means you understand where they're coming from. So, person says, you don't help. You're always angry with me. You ignore me. You don't try to work with me on anything, and I just need someone that'll work with me. Or they say something just outlandish like that. You feel like, man, they're irrational. If you could mirror back with validation, like, okay, so what I understand is that you feel like I'm pretty angry or ornery and that I resist kind of working with you. And what I'm sensing is that you really want someone that will work with you and someone that will care enough about you to like step into your shoes and maybe even see things through your eyes so that they can be more helpful, more maybe gracious even for what you do. So you're disarming the person by validating them, but you're not losing any ground. Even if you disagree with them or think they're irrational or they're used to always and never statements, maybe for a while don't confront the always never statements. Just read into it. See the real person. Make eye contact with them. Really listen to what underneath the poor communication are they trying to express. How many times have you been a little bit flooded and blurted stuff out that you hoped they could see the real you behind the words? Well, perhaps the person that is a poor communicator that you're with just needs someone to be willing to read past the mistakes and not correct the mistakes. Have you ever been talking? I do this all the time. I have sometimes poor English, and I'll get a message, your grammar is terrible, and I'm thinking, well, that's not helpful. You know, just read through it sometimes. Like, help me with my grammar, give me some thoughts. But there's times where I want you to just really try to understand me. I'm assuming that the person that's a poor communicator probably feels much like that too. So validation. You don't need to agree to validate. To validate means you agree that they believe that, and you believe that they're intelligent, you believe that they have a real point, and that you want to understand their point. The next one is such a key. The next one is such a key. And so, what number are we on? I think we're on number 5. Empathy. Empathy is probably the most powerful tool in your tool belt of skills. Empathy is the key to almost everything I do with couples, almost everything I do with families. You can empathize with a completely out of control person, but you have to believe that deep in their heart, they have a point they're trying to make that is very sincere and honest for them. Now, I get it. There's narcissistic persons. There's borderline personality disorders. There's histrionic people. There's angry people, violent people. There's even sociopathic people and psychopathic people. Somewhere deep in the reserves of their souls, they all do believe they have a point. Even the completely out of control believes they're accomplishing something that feels mandatory to them. They're doing it on purpose. They're powerful. They're intelligent most often. They just don't have the skill set of communication, and some of them don't have the skill set of empathy. Some of them don't have the skill set of being able to care. But somewhere inside their souls, there is a person that is a child of God that has a heavenly parents, that is highly interested in their success and wants someone to love them enough to see through what they're doing and understand them and empathize with them at a deeper level. Empathy is where you really set your own needs aside for a second. It's where you set your own position aside for a second. You don't try to win. You try to share with them how deeply you see they feel. It might be that you share, they just got done yelling at you for not being a teammate, not being a good person even. And you might say back, I am really sorry that you're experiencing this. I'm really sorry. I do not want you to experience this kind of pain. And I want to be part of the solution with you. I want to try my hardest to work with you. I'm not doing so well right now. You might even say, some of the things that you're saying is getting me a little flooded, and I'm really sorry that I'm not handling this well. But I want you to know that I want to be on your team. I want you to know that you have someone that will have your back. So you're sharing this empathy without telling them that you believe they're right about you or about the topic, but you're literally sharing that you see in their soul, and somewhere deep down in there, they have some pain that they're sharing, even if they're sharing it horribly. I've got couples where one of them is just so entrenched in trauma and trauma responses that they have such a defense mechanism up. You might picture a person that has had such inconsistent parenting growing up that they just learned that they could not count on any kind of a higher power or a caretaker or a lover to always care for them. So what they do is they organize a soul that is solidly sealed off independent. There's times where they are so proud of their independence that they will not look at partnering and being interdependent with another person. They push everybody away and go heal by themselves, and they come back and attend again. And whenever there's a difficult time, they look at you as the enemy until the solution is found, and then they're back in love. And those persons can be super hard. Some of the problems that don't get resolved can keep them maintaining that isolated, distancing position. And sometimes they use anger, hostility. Sometimes they use horrible words. If you can see through all that and just say, you are feeling, I can tell and I can see it, incredible pain. You are feeling isolated, lonely, and I ache for you to not be lonely. I ache for you to let me in just a little bit so that maybe we can together solve this. And if you can't, I'm still right out here. So you're sharing this empathy piece. You're sharing that you can see them. At first, all of these skills might drive the other person to say, you're just doing therapy talk with me, or you're just doing this because you got assigned to do this. But if you hang in there long enough, they will start to see your sincerity. When I'm working with couples, I tell couples that these skills that we just talked about, that the listening, the validating, the empathizing with, the jumping into the ring and engaging in the conflict, engaging in the argument. I tell them that if they are willing to do this for a solid year, and if they're willing to not quit, never give up for a solid year, their partner will start to come around slowly. Their partner will start to trust that they are in it to be a partner, that they'll start to trust that you can let your guard down, they can let their guard down, and it'll begin to work. But it'll take that long. So many people try empathy once or twice and nope, doesn't work. Or validate once or twice and it blows up, nope, that didn't work. Well, I'm telling you, these skills, when someone is a hostile communicator or a traumatized communicator or someone that's responding through the lens of trauma, you might be providing a level 1 stress. The trauma that they've suffered over the course of a lifetime might be another 10 points. So they're at an 11 on the 10-point stress scale. So if they're at an 11, even though you're only 1 point of it, the other 10 points that come from history are all being pinned on you. You're the face that they're taking all of that trauma out on at that moment. And if you can just validate, hang in there, empathize, really listen, at some point they'll see you as an ally in restoring the safety skill set that will override the trauma response. And that's the goal. That's the goal. That's what you need to do. Now, I know this sounds simple. These principles are simple. But they won't be, because they'll be met with hostility at first. In fact, there might even be an increase in hostility. It's almost infuriating at times if someone can remain calm when there's a storm in in the other person's head. So just know this is not easy. These things are easy to try and do, but it takes time and repetition. It takes finding out what trigger words the other person has. And it takes really seeing them as people that are intelligent, that want to do better. Even when they don't act like it, deep down inside, there's a little person in there that wants to come out and mature and become emotionally resolved and intelligent and be able to communicate well. They just need someone to help them with a blueprint and to be there for them. So as you do these things, there's some final thoughts here. If you can practice over and over again, practicing is super mandatory. So if you engage in practice, if you engage in constantly, when everything's calm, going over how to do this correctly, when things are calm, if the two of you could sit down and just take turns sharing with each other interesting things, fun things. Maybe out on a date, each of you take 5 minutes and share fun things with each other, and then mirror back what you've heard and make it a joke, make it fun, make it flirty, and just really practice. Police officers practice on the firing range. Athletes practice out on the field and courts that they play on. Over and over and over again, running the fundamentals. That one coach that was one of the most popular coaches ever began with his NBA basketball players, teaching them how to put socks on and tie up shoes. See, he thought that fundamental that fundamental skill needed to play basketball for hours would be to have good socks, good shoe support. And so he taught them how to do that. That seems so silly, an NBA player being taught how to tie shoes. But that's what he did. So I want you to think through that lens. Practice, practice, practice. Genuinely appreciate the other person. Constantly practice that. Soften all of your startups. Don't go in hot. Come in soft. These are the things that really make a difference. I'm going to go over some skills in another video on some really clear couples communication skills. But for now, this is what you get. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again.